Welcome. Today we're going to have segment two about the NAR settlement. Uh, I have two other great professionals with me today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves also. Uh, Go ahead, Michael.
My name is Michael Young. I am a real estate advisor with Engel and Volkers Pittsburgh.
And my name is Austin King. I am a real estate attorney and I am the broker of record for Engel Volkers Pittsburgh.
Great, guys. Thanks for being here today. Um, did I understand recently you've gone away and got some additional information that I'm thriving for about this settlement, or maybe not the settlement itself? Maybe it was more about how you're going to function or act in the future. Did you get any information recently from? I know, Michael, you said you were going away.
Well, yeah, I'm coached and mentored by Brian Buffini with Buffini and Company. So Brian did put out a Facebook Live, and that's available just on his Facebook page that discussed because he was actually a defendant in the NAR case in the Chicago one.
Okay, in the Chicago
So
one. Okay.
correct. And so then I just came back from Dallas because it was the first live event that he's had since, and it was a topic. It didn't take up the entire day or anything, but he certainly touched upon it, and a lot of it was getting us prepared with moving forward. But he, has certainly given a lot of backstory and what went down with it as well. So.
Does Buffini, does he practice, or is he pretty much just a coach? Like, why the heck did he get sued?
Well, he was named in there because of his training programs. They were saying, well, he's coaching up agents to, get better commissions and touches upon negotiating.
Okay.
And Brian was like, he did an 8-hour deposition, and he said, "Wait a minute, you just said that I help people negotiate. That's exactly what I do. But you're saying it was price fixing and antitrust. And now you're saying that I helped agents negotiate. So you're kind of like shooting yourself in the foot, right? The whole thing was it wasn't negotiable. So that's kind of frivolous, right? Because even like, the President of the United States comes out and says that, oh, real estate commissions are now negotiable, and everyone cheers,
I'm glad you
you
said
know.
that. I'm glad you said that because I don't know if a lot of people picked up on that. I thought it was kind of comical. I heard Biden say that he was part of now making real estate commissions negotiable for the first time. I mean,
Well,
I'm sure he knows nothing about real
well,
estate commissions.
here's the thing.
Fee rights never stop the government
No,
from
it doesn't.
taking action.
Well, it's funny because someone, a group of 40 people wrote that speech for him.
Sure.
So, so this isn't really him talking. This is Weekend at Bernie's here, right? So, but that's another part of it too, because they're going to have probably the side of the attorneys because 90% of Congress are attorneys. You know this, right? This is common knowledge, I would imagine.
Yes, this is common knowledge.
Yes,
Basically, it seems like that is the path for if you want to be in government.
right.
The reason I know that a little bit, my daughter, she's going to be going to law school, and
There's
she's
nothing
in,
wrong with that.
yeah, no,
You know,
no, and she's in Columbia, South Carolina, and yeah, that is a hot little political bed of where they groom these people.
yeah,
Yeah, and the federal government has a presence there, so
yeah.
yeah, that definitely they have the ability to work on campaigns and whatnot down
Oh
there.
yeah, so it's I mean the Biden thing. That's another story for another day. But that's just
We're not ganging up on you.
that's how.
Not gonna no,
Yeah,
I can say it.
so
I'm one of them. But, I mean, you're right. You're definitely not wrong about any
Yeah.
of it.
Well, I think it does. I think it's not necessarily a bad thing for them to be versed in, like, what are they doing? They're writing laws, things like that. So it only makes sense for them to have that type of knowledge. If not, they would have to be put an attorney on their staff, which I'm sure they do anyway. But yeah,
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But of course, to your point, I could see how that would sway their thinking, um, sway how they feel about really probably looking at every situation maybe a little different than what we us dummies
Well,
would look at it
I
maybe.
think that you can kind of take that result, the settlement, and kind of run with it and make it a campaign uh chip.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
sure,
So
sure, sure. So can I ask, what is your take on this? Because wearing the hat of a broker, I'm worried for you guys.
I mean, we were talking about it before we went on, but I don't do anything in residential. We do a little bit of commercial, and in the commercial world, this was how it's always been. Negotiating commissions. This isn't really anything different. So when this kind of started maybe 2 years ago, and the rumblings and everything working its way up, we kind of started preparing for it. And I mean, I think from the broker side, like, at least how we're kind of advising our agents, and all of this is pending approval, pending all of this, because who knows, things can change in 30 days. But we're setting people up with is it's really about the communication with the client. It's getting your buyer for buying side at least. It's getting your client on board with it, understanding, hey, here's what the costs are going to be. Here's how it's going to work. You might have to pay this. You might not. We'll try to roll it into this, etc. I'm sure we're going to touch on some of that, but I think it's just a communication thing. I mean, it's documenting everything in writing, whereas I think maybe prior to this, some agents would kind of be a little loosey goosey with it. And personally, I don't have a problem with that, but now that's changing, so we can't do that anymore, obviously. But you're right; it's a brave new world for brokers trying to navigate this still.
Well, yeah, and I think the reason I'm making a big deal about this to being concerned for brokers is, and Michael, you're a great example of this. You go to outside training.
yes.
That outside training isn't your training.
Right.
I don't know if you and that gentleman think alike. Maybe you do. Um, so is this going to be a situation? Do you think brokers are going to have to say, yo, agents, you've got to start listening to me right now. That guy that talks isn't going to get in trouble or isn't being responsible. So that's what I'm wondering as a broker, is that a concern? I'm sure you vet and you're on somewhat the same page as his coach, but also, is there a concern with some coaches out there?
Yeah, I mean, so we're Angle and Volkers Pittsburgh. We are kind of a smaller, I would call us like a niche brokerage at the moment. We do a lot of luxury housing. All of our agents, I mean, we know all of each other personally.
Great.
And we've already had trainings on this. We've been ready to go.
Right.
So as far as our concerns, we're not extremely concerned about it because we've been preparing. But I think you're definitely right, especially for the larger brokerages, and it's nothing against them, but some of the large ones, the big boys who have
That's a lot of people to
50
try to,
agents. Yeah.
keep keep track of.
It is. It
They're
really
doing.
is.
Yeah.
And it's asking a lot of a broker to be able to
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
all of, and especially when they've been functioning in a certain manner.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm not convinced, and I've said this in the first one, I'm not convinced anybody's really been injured through this whatsoever. I think this is personally was a money grab for a law firm, and I mean, really, I hear everybody. We're going to educate people. We're going to educate. Does that mean we're going to shove another piece of paper in front of them and the buyer's going to sign it? And you're going to say, no, we talked about it. It's right here. I don't know what really educating is.
Is that
What's my take?
is
What's your take on my take?
who's saying who's going to be educated here now? The
Well,
consumer, the buyer.
right. It sounds like to solve all these problems, which I'm not convinced there was a problem, um, can solve this problem. The buyer just needs to know. They didn't know before, and they just need to know. Well, is that going to be an attorney writing up a form, and you're going to get that to sign it when you first meet with them when you're talking about agency?
Oh, well, I mean, in Pennsylvania, we do have the buyer agency agreement, and not every state does.
Correct.
So we are fortunate to have that. So it will state in there, if um, my commission percentage is X amount closing with a seller. Then there's another line that talks about if we close with a for sale by owner, someone who's not represented, it's X amount. And usually there's a line for a broker fee or something like that. as well. Now, let's say that if my commission personally was 3% and it was only paying out 2.5, I have never enforced the extra half percentage.
Okay.
But now that the we're not getting necessarily a commission split possibly from the listing side of things, which is normally how it would work before.
Hmm.
There would be, said fee. But the part about it is I would oftentimes hold out in having that exact conversation because occasionally there would be times where I would first meet the person at the house or we would talk about, their goals and things, but I am not generally have not been a paper pusher
Okay.
because we already have to legally do the consumer notice up front. So, I tried to, I often felt let's get to know each other first to see if this is going to work. Well, now I have to create a better system just across the board for everyone that we meet, discuss this fee up front, what my value is with working with me, and which is really something that we've always were supposed to have to begin with. It just, but that's the change. You almost have to do that for everyone all the time that way.
Hmm.
So it just creates a little bit of, for someone who's a professional, to just be more professional, and there might be people that who are well prepared. I think I'm pretty well prepared myself, but I think that I could make things prettier on paper. um
He's being
to
modest. I've
to
seen him go through the
Yeah,
process walking by our sir. This guy was a lawyer in another life. He is extremely thorough, extremely good. But you're right. There's a lot of agents who just don't do it, and they're going to have to start.
So, what do you? So, are you guys saying that what were some people doing wrong then? What was wrong? Because this is where
okay.
I'm lost. I need help.
Well, I think that first off, agents got it wrong when they were telling people it's a free service.
Okay.
It was never a free service.
Okay.
They were just getting paid a different way.
Sure.
Because we don't work for free. We're not going to work for free. And I don't even think that's what the settlement is doing. It just changes it's a procedural change.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Could it be hard for a buyer to come up with said funds? I don't like the blanket statement thing. So I think sometimes there could be, but I don't know. And there's not really necessarily a set way to do things. And I don't even know if they want set ways to do things going forward. So it certainly we have to ourselves, legally speaking, but also as a business and professional, come up with our own process,
Hmm. Hmm.
our own structure in our for the consumers. So no longer can then people kind of just rest on saying, well, I'm number one and I've always been number one, and my broker is number one, and all that. I mean, that's just probably not gonna cut it. It might be for a few consumers, but
I always say everybody's number one at something. We have the most
right.
left-handed people. I mean,
Right.
but
But you really have to break down, what the process is, what you do. That is either, I mean, it might be exactly the same as how someone else has theirs, but you really state your value proposition.
I just didn't get it. You said base what was wrong. I mean, the reality is probably nothing was wrong. You'll have to call one of the
Oh,
lawyers sitting on their yacht to figure out
the,
what.
the commission's always
Let's
been
be
negotiable.
honest. Yeah, it's
The
always been
commission's
like
always
this.
been negotiable. And here's the thing, there isn't anyone talking about the commission or payoff that the attorneys got within the settlement. No one's talked about that.
oh, I have.
No one's complained
I
about
have.
that.
I,
Oh yeah.
I don't understand why nobody is
So yeah.
more outraged by that.
And then you got
Where's Mr. Biden talking about that?
so and it right. But also, they also not just settled with NAR, the publicly traded companies like, Compass and so forth, Remax settled, and it was probably the formula seemed to be about 40% of their holdings.
Okay.
And and no one's talking about that either. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Expand on that for me
Well,
because that is a great point, Michael.
you would have to. Okay, so if there's a class action lawsuit going on, a publicly traded company, that's not a good look for a publicly traded company.
But was this a class action lawsuit?
Yeah, in Missouri. Yeah, the Missouri one was, and there was a gentleman, real estate attorney,
Civil lawsuit,
civil lawsuit.
correct? That so you're saying there was a group of private individuals that were suing NAR, or were they suing real estate companies?
I think it was the entire
It was basically everybody got
in the
named.
industry.
Yeah.
Well, because even Brian Buffini is a defendant in this lawsuit.
Okay.
NAR,
Yeah.
the brokerages. I think that has Home Services settled yet? I think they might still be out there.
I think as of the taping of this, I didn't think so, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Right.
So civil lawsuit, class action. Where does the DOJ fall into this? Help me.
Well, you'll have to call Joe about that one because I don't understand it either. I mean, I get they're involved. They can always look at civil actions, take criminal action if they want to. But
Right.
I mean, just my personal opinion, I think there's far bigger issues out there for us to deal with. And
But
like
was the
this.
DOJ part of that class action lawsuit?
They wouldn't be a party to it.
That's my point to all of this. That's what I've been trying to get. This is a civil lawsuit in what state?
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay. Do they have agencies, broker, buyer agency, dole agency, seller agency in Missouri?
I
don't know the
don't
answer to that
recall.
one.
When I did corporate relocation, St. Louis was an area. I don't recall though. I don't.
Okay. Okay. You and I did this in the last one. You guys are licensed in what state to practice?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Can you practice in Missouri?
No,
Oh,
not
is
without
it
license.
different when you go to Ohio?
Yes,
Was it different in Florida?
it sure is.
Oh, okay. So whatever happened in Missouri pertains to Pennsylvania.
Yes, because I mean they are federal. To be fair, it is a federal organizations and it is a federal courts. It's the fourth district, so you're right. But I get the point you're making.
So I guess my thing is who's licensing? Isn't it each state licensing people?
That is correct.
Correct.
Is there federal laws to pertain to real estate?
Well, there would be like fair housing.
There's
Is that what you mean?
statutes and
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Right, the statutes, things of that nature. But other than that, every large company, what you guys are a part of, they get individually licensed in each state. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. You can't practice law in every state, correct?
Only the ones I'm barred in.
Okay. All right. So I guess what's interesting, I don't know. We don't know really in Missouri, or how did that state get picked?
Go ahead.
Go.
We were
Well,
talking about it.
Thank you. This is the good stuff. Go ahead.
So there is a real
Sorry, I'm leading this.
It's the real estate attorney who really kind of leveraged the whole thing to take place was Doug Miller. And Doug Miller's been around for a long time, and for about 40 years, he's tried different lawsuits to try to control or change real estate commission structures.
Okay.
So he found a very large attorney, company in Washington State,
Mm-hmm.
willing to take it on with hundreds of attorneys within their, what would you call it? Not board, but your
The firm?
firm.
Okay.
Yes, your firm. So they decided to go to Missouri because that jury only has to be 8 jurors versus other states of being 12 jurors for federal class action lawsuit.
Okay.
It was also, with this case, was the largest or the longest jury, kind of decision timing of selection process that had been within that state before.
Okay. All right.
So the thought is they may or may not have kind of stacked.
Handpicked a state.
We call forum shopping.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how we got to this case situation.
Okay.
And so what a lot of people thought was a winnable case, NAR didn't kind of pull through on that though. And
Okay.
was it the jury selection? I maybe probably like a lot of things I would think that, but seemed to be a pretty winnable case because again, our commissions have always been negotiable.
Okay. So the settlement, I'm talking about money here. Where does that money go? 480 million, something like that. Where's that money going?
Well, council will get a cut,
Okay.
which has to be approved since it's a class action lawsuit, so they
Yes.
can't just take whatever they want. And then the members of the class are going to get something, but I
The
don't
group
think
of
they.
home buyers,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I don't think. Sorry, yeah, members of a class is in a class action lawsuit. If you have 100 people, you're all members of the class. There's a leader of the class. Anyways, but I don't believe they finalized that because this hasn't necessarily been court approved yet either. So
Mhm.
I don't practice in class action lawsuits, but just kind of from my understanding is I don't think it's been finalized quite.
You mean like ratified? Would that be what you mean?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, somebody's going to have to sign off on this, some
Sure.
judge in the Fourth Circuit somewhere. So
Okay. And this is me spitballing. This is what my concern is. I know everybody, right? What stops these lawsuits from happening in all the other states now?
well, it's a good question. It could, but in theory, most of these issues have been handled. So you could bring these again, I guess, but some of this is going to be like, hey, once the way they do this, so from now on, or well, let's assume it all gets approved. You fast forward 12 months from now, right? It's
Hmm.
all approved. Everybody's using these new buyer agency forms, and these quote unquote issues have been resolved. You wouldn't be able to bring it on the same issues because it's not happening anymore. If you
Okay.
think about it, like usually class actions, like a defective part in a vehicle, right?
Yes.
Ford builds a car that explodes or something, right? This
Yes.
gas tank explodes. They fix the gas tank. It's no longer exploding. There's no longer class actions about it.
Okay.
In theory, and in theory here, this should fix quote unquote whatever these issues were. There shouldn't be any more class actions regarding this because it's been fixed.
But if I guess what I'm saying is if money is being distributed and it's being distributed to, I'm sorry, Missouri has to be such a small group of sellers compared to the whole country. Why is it fair for just that small group of people to get this money? What about everybody else?
Well,
If this is, and I've been told it not maybe not about the money, but I mean, I guess this is where my concern is. This opens the door. We act like something's going wrong. They took a bunch of money is being paid. Don't know where it's going. But what about the people that were injured in Virginia? What about the people that were injured in Florida? Which I'm still lost on these injuries because um, you could, I guess you could say, well, yes, the seller ended up paying more commission, but did they result in a higher sales price for their house? So was there really? I don't know how you'd even prove that. Was there really an injury? Um,
Well, so are you talking about because of the amount of money that was made during a hot market by agents?
No,
Or
I'm saying that there's in Missouri's case, they're saying that obviously the people filing the lawsuit were the sellers, correct? Who's the
like
class
yeah,
action?
I mean, it's a
Who's the who?
but allegedly, yeah,
But who was the class? Was it sellers?
I guess it'd be
I
sellers.
believe
Yeah.
so.
So what about all the other sellers? If they're saying that, and there wasn't, they end up settling. I guess I guess this is where I have a problem with this, and I'm afraid, do we have open are we open to additional, just like in the last segment? I mean, I have people out I own a settlement company. I have people doing closings this morning. Are we saying that, and there's realtors involved, are we saying that the realtors that were representing sellers in those closings I'm doing today, are they being mistreated? Are they opening themselves up to be able to sue realtors? this is what I'm so scared about.
Yeah, I mean, for that exact example, no, because this is still not, nothing's been, confirmed or pending, and a part of the settlement was no admittance of wrongdoing by NAR,
Right.
but you're exactly right. I know how are things going to change here.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't sell any houses. I'm just the broker on this. I'm just literally
Yes.
a managing broker, but I feel for all of our team, for our advisors and everything, because this is people's livelihood at stake, and
Right.
they're
Right.
just in limbo. I mean, we don't know.
But we're still
You're
practicing.
still going,
We're
right?
doing the same freaking thing.
Right.
So right now we can talk about change, but are are people being injured every single day by these practices?
Again, you have to call counsel out on the yacht when they
Yeah.
get the check. We'll
Yeah.
find out.
That
We'll let you know all about it.
and that's where I'm like, I just want to declare nonsense on some of this because of that. I don't think listen, every industry has bad apples.
Right.
They do. They
Yeah.
have bad apples. I mean,
Look at mine.
well,
The damn lawyers.
mine, everybody. We always have a couple people that mess things up. I'm just really concerned about where's the end game here. Um, Explain to me about NAR. What is NAR?
So, like, I guess according to NAR, by the way, and this is it's interesting that this is in this industry, considering the average um, take home, or actually the average gross per year by the average agent is less than
I
$40,000 a
know.
year.
I heard that. I heard that.
Yeah, and that's a matter of fact.
That is. You are 100% true.
So it's now granted, did those folks on social media that and not really anyone around here that I can think of, but
I know
those
where you're going.
the folks that play, Keeping Up with the Kardashians on the Netflix shows and the Instagrams and whatnot, did that kind of lead to things too? I don't know, maybe.
Hmm.
But then again, this guy's always had an issue with
Hmm.
his commission situation anyway. He does a closing for 1,500. Why can't a realtor do the same? It's just not like that.
And I think I know exactly where you're going with this, Michael. You're talking about in the world of social media, we have individuals maybe in the real estate world showing that they are living lavish lifestyles.
Well, right. So could
I
that be
get
a
it.
perception that the jury had
Yes,
because of that? And because ultimately it was up to the jury.
it was.
You know what I mean? So, and there was also an I gotcha moment within this court with the Alan Dalton, who was with one of the larger brokerages, had a podcast episode
Okay.
with a gentleman named Tom Ferry. And
This is news to me. I'm
oh, yeah. So there was an I gotcha moment in this court case that eyewitness said that the whole tone kind of changed from there in the Missouri. So there, and you can find it on YouTube. I probably not under Tom Ferry though, but it exists. It's kind of it's a profane laced dialogue that he had with his top agent in New York about negotiating the commission.
okay.
And it was very it did not paint how a consumer, like a home buyer or seller, is viewed in a very good light,
Okay.
because there was references to what am I, a prostitute, the Lincoln Tunnel situation going on here. So they played that
Oh,
in the courtroom. Now, granted, you have a podcast, right?
I guess if you want to call it this, I don't know what
Right,
this
but
is.
you choose what goes out
Yes,
from said podcast.
I've said this to yes, and you know what? I said this to a local broker. Don't get mad at me. You control your social media, what you put out there. But go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
You're right. You're
So
right.
someone who is also a real estate coach, not mine, but is representing agents, thought that was a good idea to put out there.
Hmm.
Look at that, kind of backfired a little bit at the very least. So
So you think that made you all take it in the shorts because of that? Like
um
really punched you guys.
no, that was just one of the, I think it was a factor, but not the maybe most contributing factor. This is just all what went down.
Yeah. Yeah.
This actually happened, that they showed it there, and it's kind of like a moment. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but a little off topic. I didn't mean to get on the bunny trail there, but we're Where
Was talking about NAR.
oh
What is NAR? I've kind of already said this before, and forgive me if you didn't see segment one, but my biggest gripe in this industry, I'm getting old and grumpy now. Um, I get people telling me what law is. We do this because, and half the things aren't laws. There's no freaking laws written anywhere. This is your company's procedures. This is like, I'm sorry, like the MLS doesn't control the industry, even though we're kicking your listing out because you don't have these photos. We're gonna fine you. These are just clubs that you're to. These are not this is not law. But we've
do
got
you
so
have
much
to be a NAR
confusion.
member to be a member of the MLS?
I
I
believe.
think,
I think
or at
for
least the
full
way that they are
privileges,
now.
yeah, for the full
Right.
privileges,
But
right?
also in order to
But that's
claim,
a separate membership.
correct. Right. We are paying members of each.
You guys pay memberships to where?
The the People's Republic of the West Penn Multi List, the National Association of Poor People, the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, and then local dues to whether it be Beaver County or realtors of Metropolitan Pittsburgh or Westmoreland, one of those.
So you're a member of these clubs.
Yeah, and supposedly the National Association of Poor People lobbies in Washington for you for um, realtors' rights and an advocate for home buyers and things like that. But I know that I believe that there was some fighting, like let's say whenever um, we were on lockdown, and they were saying that it was not a one of those businesses where you could work during the
Essential.
right.
Non-essential.
So that I know that there was some help in that. Of course, it probably helped that things were starting to get under control though as well. So I don't know how well that really helped, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were literally out of commission for a couple of months there.
Well, that was a crazy time because you had so many industries and professions that one day you were non-essential, you're essential, and really who was determining that? And yes, it was disruptive. It
Yeah.
was
Well, you
disruptive.
think like food essential would be like food, clothing, and shelter. So hello, you know what I mean? So
It's
anyways,
insane that whole
but then
situation
yeah,
ever happened,
that's behind us.
Yeah,
But think about all that we've kind of been through over the past several years. We
correct.
had this the pandemic, the lockdown, the coming out in this incredibly hot market. Then we had inflation, we had the rising interest rates,
Why do
and
you think
now
the
here we
market
are.
was so hot?
I think that, well, first off, the rates went down.
Who controls that?
That would be the government,
Okay.
and that was obviously a that was not organic, let's say. I think it's safe to say that, yeah. And so we had this hot market, and I think that's part of it too. That may probably what led to this being more the Washington State firm picking that up
Yeah.
because of the hot market and the money that was made by agents during that time. They said, well, you're making all this money, but you didn't do anything because you had 15 offers. Actually, when I had listings like that, it was actually kind of difficult, to be honest. I would be exhausted during that time.
You know,
Christina was on, she'll tell you that it's a grind. It's not this lavish,
I'll tell you
you
what,
know.
you're right about that. And I was one to make fun of the market at that point in time because I felt a lot of times that the newer agents, I grew up in open houses, I always say. My father, we owned a local brokerage. I always say I grew up in open houses. And, you know, I'm 50 years old, so I remember the 80s. I remember things weren't happening, but it, you just worked harder at different parts. So I used to make fun of agents that, oh, everybody's saying sold this in 3 hours and things like that. However, I think maybe that was possibly a mistake, making such a big deal about how quick things were moving, but it was a reality. Putting your home listing and putting someone's home in a mall list system to me is not really marketing, but that was considered marketing at that time because things were so hot. But you guys did. I mean, you were negotiating multiple offers. That's tough. That is really tough navigating. I mean, I, I don't think I don't think everybody was focusing on how tough that was.
Right, because they were, the terms of the offer, it's not just the price. There are various other factors.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
So what would be the difference? You working open houses and have a hard time finding a buyer and only dealing with just one offer negotiating? That would be easier. Now, at that point in time, you didn't have to market well, but boy, you had all these offers coming in and you had to manage them and you had to make sure you were representing people properly.
right. Well, think about this, right?
It's tough.
If you're a physician, you're a researching physician for a cure for something, and you find it right away. Don't you think that that would actually be a pay raise? It
Yes,
wouldn't be a pay decrease.
correct. Correct.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it was a wave. It was a
Yeah,
wave
now,
in the
now
industry.
granted, the market drove a lot. I mean, but the market right now is still very good,
It's very good.
just despite the rate contrast.
It is. It
So,
is. So still get back to NAR having the ability to settle this because not everybody falls under NAR. Not everybody is a member of NAR.
right.
And there is a group of people or a few groups of people that aren't covered by the settlement.
Hmm.
So if the settlement's saying we're going to start doing something, does that mean that the others don't have to do that aren't a member of NAR?
Well, that's a good question. We don't know the answer yet, is the reality. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, they're still active defendants because they haven't settled. So,
Yes.
no, I mean, it's ongoing litigation. As much as that's not a fun answer to hear today, we just don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah. I mean, I would just hope that I don't want to see the industry um, be ruined. I, to Michael's point, there are hardworking people in this industry, very hard, and not everybody is wealthy in this industry. Um,
Right. I mean, granted, like, have I been able to go places and do some things that I otherwise wouldn't? Sure. But it's a grind every day. It's a grind. It's
yeah.
just like anything
Well,
else.
you mean the palace you have, right?
Yeah. The one where I need to get a bigger house. I just talked about that, folks that need to get a bigger house. So do I. So I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know.
What are some changes that you guys are going to, the two of you, in your company? What changes do you think you're going to be making? Not granted, I know you don't know, but what are you anticipating right now? What changes do you foresee? Because I think pretty much what we've talked about is, and Michael, I've done closings for you. Your buyers aren't walking in not knowing what's going on.
Right.
Everybody seems very educated or very aware of what's going on, and nobody feels slighted or hurt
Right.
whatsoever. So, what do you think you're going to
I
change?
mean, I think that I can bring a pretty nice value proposition to the table. I think it just means I'm doing it more upfront versus through the process.
Okay,
So like it's not like nothing's going to change. Sure, it's going to be different but to an extent. I'm not freaking out because everything's turned upside down in terms of what I do on a daily basis.
okay,
But the thing for me is when it comes to, I think you're going to see some agents maybe do like an a la carte thing where, okay, I show properties for $300 and then I charge 500 to, write the contract and things. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know, like, even as a listing agent, if I could offer package A, B, and C, like, let's say a photographer, you
mm-hmm,
get like, five by 10, 8 by 10s, and
mm-hmm,
because I can't go like half speed. Like it's just what I do, my service or not.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, it could be negotiable. Like, I don't mean it. I just mean like in terms of me only working so much for a lesser price
Sure,
is what I mean.
sure, sure.
So I don't know if I think you'll see that. I think it's gonna be really chaotic at first.
Do
You're
you?
I think you're gonna see people doing some all kinds of weird stuff. You know what I mean? And then there's people are going to get sued, and then it will kind of settle down for kind of get into a rhythm
Yeah,
at that point.
I know right now I've only had once of jumping into the real estate industry again myself with maybe starting a brokerage. Um, I mean, I think there might be a couple disruptors out there that might try something totally different. This is probably the time for them to do it.
Of course, there's going to be somebody in private equity is going to come. I mean, we were just talking about this. Whether to work or not, I don't know. But of course,
Honestly,
there's going to be.
that's okay because I myself might be able to leverage that to my advantage and say,
Sure.
boy,
Yeah.
not that I'm going to, crap all over that individual, but I can use that model as not being a good model and why, what I offer is better.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you guys are in the industry. That there has been some disruptors that have tried in the past. I remember HousePad was one of them. They tried this. Hey, you market your own home, and I think the commission was like 4%, something really low, and it failed. So I think,
I mean, I could say I represent a lot of clients who own service businesses, not real estate, but HVAC, plumbing, pest control. It's been like the last 5, 10 years, they've been PE, private equities comes in, buy them, try and roll them up into like a vertically integrated system. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times it doesn't because it's the
mhm,
relationship. It's not about,
Right.
like some guy, is sitting at his desk in California running an Excel spreadsheet about how much, we can lower margins here and raise them here and we'll make this much money. And that's what they're going to try. Whether it'll work or not, I don't know. But I see it fail just as often as we see it succeed because of the relationships.
Right. And then I do think that you're going to have uh buyers. I think about my dad. My dad changes his own oil still, right? And you're going to have people that are going to try to represent themselves,
mhm.
which they could. However, a seller could say, "We're not going to work with someone." I would imagine they could do this. Not me as the agent, but the actual seller, the homeowner, could probably legally say, "I don't want to work with anyone who's not represented by a licensed professional."
Sure. And I think another great point is realtors do sell for sell by owner homes,
Yes,
and you negotiate commission on every one of those deals.
that is correct.
This is nothing new. This is something that's still going to happen.
Correct.
And I think maybe was the concern that, oh my goodness, we've gotten to the point that you can't you can't change your own oil anymore. You can't sell your house by yourself. People do. I'm not saying that's the smartest thing. You can do it. You may not make the most money, but maybe it's not about the money too. And I think that that's normally where there's, oh, if you would have used us, you would have got more money. Maybe it wasn't about the money sometimes, to some people's point. Um, you know, there are some people, and I think we've all seen them, that have taken offers because they like that buyer better than someone else. They like
Yeah.
what they're going to do with their home. This isn't just a cup. We nurtured this cup. We built this cup and we want to make sure this cup keeps going on. And maybe it's not always about maybe the maybe the message should be we're going to find the right buyer for your house,
Yeah.
not always the most
Yeah.
money.
Right.
You know, uh,
Right.
you know, I know that's fluff.
But well, no, because terms are important. They really are, for terms in general. But so I'll just use this example. Okay. I brought my buyers to an open house and the agents were there and we had all of us had a really great conversation.
Wait, Michael, you took the time to take your buyers to a house and you just didn't send them?
It's part of building a relationship, sir. So, I'm going to be there every step of the way, including
Which
afterwards.
sometimes that is
Well,
okay
yeah,
with doing that, but I'm just saying
I
it's
right.
nice when you have the time or the ability to go
Yeah,
and do that
there are
because
times
there
where
are
I
times.
can't make it to all of them.
Sure, of
Yeah,
course. So
I would be
I
lying
know
if I yeah.
picking fun.
It was a Sunday. I was available and I
Yeah.
was there when I'm there when I'm available. And so but we hit it off really well. I did not know the agent at the time. I only knew their name and it was a great experience. We got into a bidding war, of course, and because that's still a thing even in 2024. And so It goes to a highest and best scenario. Well, the other buyers were there. They weren't even at the open house. It was their no, I think it may have just been their agent that went through and maybe FaceTimed or something like
Mhm.
that, or maybe they were there.
Yeah, and
But
it's phenomenal that agents do that
but
for
here's the
people too.
thing. Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah, it's
You know,
great.
because I do work with people that are out of state
Yeah,
and things like that.
yeah.
So that's how the showings tend to work.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, our offers, I think, pretty much matched. It's my understanding, but because they were so, genuine, authentic, and really, they got the vibes that this was a budding family. So, the agent themselves, kind of nudged. Obviously, they don't make that decision, but if we're dead even, it goes to like other things. When there's a tie, there are tiebreakers.
There are tiebreakers.
You know what I mean?
Isn't it funny how many letters break those tiebreakers when the people write a letter, "Hey, we love your house so much." Isn't
Oh,
it? It's amazing, isn't it?
we don't do that anymore. Yeah, I won't let that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, oh God, no. Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
We don't.
Oh, that's a
Right?
lawsuit
Like,
waiting to happen.
Yeah. No.
But
No. No. No.
oh,
No.
like,
That still happens.
oh boy, yeah, we don't.
Why? I'm lost on why.
Well, if there's
Tell
things,
me that.
well, here's,
okay.
my well, you can speak to it legally, but my concern would be, okay, I have my buyer do this and they don't get selected, but maybe they gave too much information. Um, that could be a fair housing violation, first off.
Explain that to me. Wait, I'm lost on this because isn't this
I'll let my attorney cover that.
yeah. No, this is a really interesting topic
I
to
mean,
me.
honestly, we don't. I mean, just as a brokerage, we don't do it. But
I
in
know you
theory,
don't do it, but
yeah,
why is it a
the
problem?
idea is this, at least in theory, is let's say you guys, I'm the seller, you both are buyers, you both write me a letter. I look at Michael's letter, and he's a minority, and you're not, and I look at it and go, really, I'm going to choose you. That can come up in a Fair Housing Act case later because you've put information about yourself out there that, in theory, could change my decision.
On the listing side, when that was, when it was before it was frowned upon, uh, I saw pictures of individuals in these letters, their families. So
But
I guess
I guess what I'm lost to
fortunately in those cases, they ended up getting the
oh,
house. But
but wait, guys, like I'm lost on this. So but it's the buyers voluntarily giving this information about themselves. What's so bad about okay, I think what you're speaking about, you're concerned about if you're on the listing side. I'm talking about if you're on the buyer side. What have you done wrong on the buyer side?
well, I mean, for me, um, because of that potential scenario, I think most of the brokerages have, not wanting that to even be out there as a thing. And I think that NAR may have been one of those entities that was talking about that at least.
Yeah, at least,
Yeah.
yeah, it's part of their training. But I mean, I think it's more about you're right. It's not necessarily about the buying protecting the buyer, but it's more about making the seller uncomfortable with that decision. Because if you're getting those letters, I mean, I would think there's going to be sellers, agents out there who get a letter from a buyer and go, "You got to be careful now because there's information out there, and if they're not happy with the decision you made, then it's putting you in an uncomfortable
There have
position."
been plenty of recent studies that such discrimination still exists out there. So I would,
Allegedly, it's something NAR's working on to combat.
Hmm. I guess I'm perplexed by that. I still, I guess I see that as the human side of things. Um, and I mean, we're in a world that like of social media. I mean,
I would say
I
this.
am
I mean,
really shocked. Like, I always thought that shows how far behind in the times I am. But wow, I'm considered that is like not it maybe frowned upon by some brokerages.
and I would say that's just not locally. I believe that that's kind of the consensus nationally,
I know.
globally.
I don't really. I know. I
But
really.
yeah, I don't want to just say that.
We sell here.
yeah,
I care about like I
Yeah,
I guess
I didn't want to single out the Pittsburgh and
yeah, yeah. I guess I'm
area.
more concerned about if I wanted to get a house in Beaver, where we're at right now, man, and my buyers really wanted that house, and I was representing the buyer, and thinking, I guess there's nothing to stop the buyer from stopping and dropping that letter off
Well,
too,
here's the thing.
right?
Here's what I do.
Okay,
One of
help
the
me
things that
out here.
So rather than write the letter, I sell my buyer to the listing agent who they can relay this information to. And I'm not going to say that they're, if they happen to be a same-sex couple. I don't get into that, obviously. But things like if they were if it's a VA deal and they were a combat veteran, I
Okay.
think that that's like an important piece of information, maybe.
Yeah, no, I
Is that
mean,
any different?
well, there's a lending difference there, of course, with a VA loan.
Right, but I mean, and
But
so, but also, if they are what we used to do, I will say this too.
They're a first-time home buyer. Oh my God, I have identified that. Oh
Well,
my God, they're a veteran.
yeah.
Oh my God.
So, but there's different things. Like
Yeah,
if they are okay, I'm pointing out if they're going over like 20% and more down. Okay, so to reassure that
you are going into such a beautiful topic that I'd love
there
to
could be a
talk about.
fluctuation in the loan. Seriously,
Yes,
there could be
yes,
a
you are.
fluctuation in the deal. So I'm like, look, they're putting over. So if the overtime, the underwriter says the overtime can't be counted as
Yeah,
income, it doesn't knock them out of the water debt to income
yeah,
ratio because they're putting so much down.
it's true.
So like there's
100%.
flexibility. So don't it's not something that they can't afford.
Yeah.
And I what one thing that we used to do, or at least that I used to do, was that in the early days, 5 years ago or so, you'd not want to show your whole hand of how much they can get a loan for. Well, now I kind of do because I want them to know that this is within their means according to the lending institution, that should it be lower, there's fluctuation that could be
Mhm.
handled, that they should feel more comfortable that they are good on the financing aspect of it. So
Yeah.
the financing part, um so things like that. You know, I tried to, build up my buyer and sort of try to tell their story in a way that doesn't muddy the gray, we don't get into any gray area per se. It's
Yeah.
fact based, at
Yeah.
least, you
Yeah.
know.
In my whole idea is just thinking about if I'm a seller, I mean, is this taking away my choice of who I want to sell a house to then? But, I think this is part of like what the problem is right now. I mean, you can't make anybody do anything. You can try to make people do things. It's funny. I really think this lawsuit about, and I'm kind of jumping ahead. I really think this has everything to do about agency. I really do. I think this has everything to do about agency. Um, I think this gentleman has just found different ways to do it. My father being a broker for a long time, he and I used to argue about this. Buyer, dole, and seller agency. And I remember when it was just seller agency. And
Buyer beware.
I remember it when everybody was a sub agent of the seller. Um, when you're in dole agency, gentlemen, who do you represent?
yourself. I mean, let's just be honest. It's crazy. It's one of the very few things I break with a lot of these is, I mean, from my world as an attorney, there's no situation I can represent both parties and
Why?
effectively
Why?
look out for their interests. Because of course you have a fiduciary duty and you can't. If they're in competing interests, it's not possible. It's one of the very few things with all this that I think if they get rid of that, it's probably for the best.
I really think
It's not a
Right.
popular opinion. I
no,
know.
no, no. I'm not popular about this either. People are a bit mad,
Yeah.
but really, I really think that this is what this is all about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Um, let's say we do this a la carte thing. That I charge for this, I charge for this. Well, if you have two agents in your office, and one's a listing, and then Michael has this buyer agency with somebody that he got signed up front, and they enter in a contract. What is that? Two different agents.
It is two different agents. See, that one, in my field, we call it the Chinese firewall, which is basically two from the same brokerage. Because Michael's still looking out for his client's best interests, or you in this scenario, still be looking out for your
But you as
client's
a
best
broker getting
interests.
paid no matter what, right?
Yeah, that's always kind
Who
of
are
the issue
you? Who
here.
are you giving advice to?
I know.
Or
That's where
are they running amok and they're just independents by themselves?
I don't know what the right answer
Is that dole agency?
I think at the very least, this leads to lawsuits.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's where I'm thinking
And I
that this
remember
is now.
one of the other brokerages I was with before, the corporate attorney had actually drafted a document in terms of dual agency that basically the buyer and seller signed off.
Just because he's an attorney, he drafted something. He's not a judge. Like,
Well,
oh my
right.
God, I talked to my attorney. Great, that's his opinion.
But I will say that's more than I've seen at other places as
Yes.
well. So like there were things in place that kind of, try to protect.
Just remember, OJ died yesterday, but I'm pretty sure there was an attorney saying OJ was innocent. I'm pretty sure there was an attorney saying OJ was guilty.
Yeah.
They right, just because they say it doesn't mean it's
I
right.
wonder what Marcia Clark's up to these
I don't
days.
know.
Is she still practicing?
I probably not.
Well, it's 30 years ago, so
I think
yeah,
she wrote a book and
She did.
yeah, it does like I think she actually does domestic violence victim
think she does.
advocacy now.
She does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
I
Yeah.
actually think yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
But hey,
Michael. Go ahead.
Oh,
Tiny
you
wrote
yeah.
this up.
Oh yeah, so there were things like that, but you think about if you're representing both parties. Now, granted, I don't leak information, and this is something that doesn't happen often for me anyway, at least. But think about like if you knew what the other offers were in a bidding war, and your buyer still wanted to submit an offer, but you knew it was a waste of time. That's kind of it's hard to spend your time at that point doing things like that even.
I think, and I've said this to everybody, I think in human nature, there's no way there are not two people that I like equally. I can do my best to treat people the same, but it is human nature that you're going to favor one person over the other. Maybe now I think we have some incredible people in this industry that do their best and do a great job of treating to their ability treating parties both sides. But if you're running buyers around for weeks, months, sometimes having meals with them, you get to know their family, you befriend them.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's awesome about this is the awesome thing about this. You do make friendships.
Yes.
You make friendships with customers, and that's important. But it does become tough to represent a friend and then at the same time someone else. And I know agents have removed themselves from those situations, but I really think about if you're going back to having this a la carte, I'm charging you X amount of dollars to be your buyer agent. Well, what happens when you find yourself in dual agency? How does that work? How does the compensation change?
I well, I guess first for me, I will not be offering the a la carte
Okay.
buffet,
Okay.
but
I think that's smart. I really
yeah,
do, but
no,
what do I know? But I think I do.
Yeah.
yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, I'm not. That's very transactional, and I'm not transactional. That's just not
Yeah.
me and how I'm wired in the business I want to have.
Right. And that's
You
what I
know,
mean. Some people like you, I mean, I think you can
and I'm
you
not saying
do.
there's anything wrong with that.
I
Like
don't either.
it's
I
just
don't
not
see
me.
this.
It's just not me and for
I
me.
just think it opens up. If you as an attorney find it difficult to represent two parties,
Impossible. Legally impossible. Yeah.
is this possibly what this is really talking about? Is this what we're talking about? And we've just tied this into the dollars and the compensation. I'm wondering if this is really what we're talking about.
It just depends how cynical you are about all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality.
I mean, yeah. Well, so and I've thought about okay, so what if
I don't know what the solution is.
yeah, well, I would build relationships with your other agents in your market because if I would probably start having referral partners
Would you?
if this is something that yes, and I know people who may work buyers better than others,
Mm-hmm.
and it may even be it might just be because they're a stronger listing agent. There's all kind, and sometimes it may come down to how people are wired,
Yeah.
even. So like,
Yeah.
but I would start building those relationships. I've thought about this in my mind too. That okay, we need to like maybe partner up. Like if this is a thing where we can't continue, in that way as well. And it could be additional business for someone,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And maybe the listing agent gets a referral fee out of the whole thing to begin with, possibly. I
but
don't know.
you're still getting paid.
That would be
That's why I'm poking holes in it. Like even taking a
Yeah.
referral fee, you know what I mean by you're
You have an
saying I
incentive.
well,
selected
okay.
you to represent you.
Oh,
Do you see where I'm going with that?
I
well,
mean, I think there's going to be rules just like there is with like agents and mortgage brokers, agents with
how do
title.
we not know each other though? If we're all in the same general market, how are we
That's
not going
this
to
is
know?
why this is so tough. That's why this is so
Yeah.
tough, and I don't think anybody's being malicious, and I don't want to say anybody's being. I don't. I just think we're humans,
Yeah.
and this is tough. And we may have had a group of 8 people in Missouri that were. I don't know how good NAR's attorneys were. Did they do a great job? I know what NAR wanted to do. I get it. They wanted to stop the bleeding with the settlement. It makes sense. We need to go forward. Um, I do think
Well, they're saying that they settled because of the amount of the bond that they would have to do in order to basically challenge that.
okay.
Uh, and that's allegedly, of course, but or is it part of the court when there's a judgment, how much you have to post in order to
So like
challenge?
every circuit has different rules and everything. I mean, but they agreed to this settlement. So the only thing with the appeal thing I've always it's kind of I mean they agreed to settle, so there wouldn't in theory be an appeal because they did
Right.
agree.
I feel like,
Hard to
well,
say.
I thought that they settled because it was too much
That's
to
what they
appeal.
said. Yeah. I mean,
That's
the
what they.
reality is we don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's all
Mhm.
behind the
It
scenes.
makes sense though. Where's all the money coming from? And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I would think that you get into the billions, it starts bankrupting
Oh,
organizations.
that would be horrible. That'd be horrible. I mean, honestly, I mean, there are some of these large institutions that families have built these.
You mean the National Association of Poor People?
No, I'm talking about some of the big boys, some of the independent real estate
Oh,
companies.
oh,
You know, I mean, I would hate to see that be taken away. Um,
oh, like the independent brokerages,
yeah,
because they don't have the clout to
they don't have
sell
the
at 40% of their assets. Yeah,
yes. I mean, I
yeah.
think that would be really tough.
And I think it's probably tough corporately for those who have settled because 40% is a pretty substantial number regardless of how much you have.
It sure is.
So like I would imagine people have already lost jobs at this point. Just
That's hor
just to like maintain
that's horrible.
the company.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, do you guys think, two more questions for you guys. Do you guys think that out of this, that less fees are going to be collected for a real estate transaction?
No.
Do you think?
Probably not.
I agree with you guys. I agree with you. So this is all about nothing.
I mean, I have a cynical viewpoint on this whole thing.
So do
I think it's.
Well, like you have to think about this. If you're really out for something, winning sometimes is just the most important thing, not what actually comes out of it. The fact that you can say, "I beat NAR, I beat the realtors,"
I.
you know.
That's great, and that's great for those people there. But I'm talking about reality. What is the reality of this change?
That's what I mean. Like,
Is it going to be
because
cheaper?
no,
It's not going to be cheaper.
no.
So, last
I don't work for
It's
free.
certainly not going to benefit consumers.
that,
They pitch this as that, and obviously it's not going to do that. So
that's what sickens me.
yeah,
That's
Right.
what I don't.
Now
We're
I get
helping
to
the
now I'm
consumer.
helping now I'm gonna have conversations. I mean, I work with a lot of first time home buyers and I've seen the budgets. It might be, hopefully we can get this done through financing, but what if it doesn't? And are they gonna go unrepresented? Because, the we're not gonna work pro bono here.
And I'm going to make one statement and ask my last question. Most realtors, when I do closings, their customers will follow the lead of what the realtor is telling them, not because of it's, it's because they trust you guys.
Trust
And
it, right?
that's why they selected you, and that's why they're working with you. They're going to say, Michael, I don't do this every day. I'm going
Right,
to listen to what you tell me.
right.
So, I mean, are we telling the consumer don't trust and don't listen to your professional?
I think that sometimes that's the message it's conveying here,
And,
especially with the bad PR on the national news, because unfortunately people believe that.
and that's just and listen, that's just not true. I mean, most of these people, they want a home.
Yeah.
You know, commercial stuff, that's different. Commercial stuff, I always tell people, you know, you do commercial transaction, everybody's got an attorney representing them. You all got to be big boys.
Your brother says he calls it the wild wild
It
west.
is the wild
Yeah.
wild west, and because there are less roles. You're not doing these CDs, you're not doing these Altas. It's
Mm.
I don't need to explain to you.
Hell, disclosures.
I
I mean,
mean,
in my world, commercial, it's always as is, whereas, as you found it.
correct. You've got to be a big boy if you have that money. But the government wanted to protect consumers, which I understand to a certain degree. But I mean, at the end of the day, how many clients you represent clients, they hired you to listen to you, not for them to come there and tell
Right,
you what to do.
right.
They're seeking just like you, Michael.
But I think about the consumer. Okay, let's say the financing is they can't get the buyer's agent commission financed, and so they're going to then try to tackle it unrepresented.
Sure.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Yes,
All
I
they
agree.
wanted was a house.
I agree. Last question, guys. So what I'm understanding about this settlement is you can't communicate through the model system. So just by taking BAC off of the model system and maybe putting it on your own website, is that good enough? I mean, they felt that was what, collusion, communicating through the model system. Well, isn't NAR just a group of people? Aren't you guys all going to be communicating through NAR?
Yeah.
What the heck is the difference?
How does 1.2 million people collude? Usually that's like two or three, that collude.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, I thought that it may look like, are they going to be allowed to, as a seller or representative of the seller, going to be allowed to put in the multi list how much in concessions they might be willing to offer?
Yeah, and that's what people said. We don't know. I mean, at least as of stands today, sure. Will further rules come down? Who knows? I mean, the reality is you're gonna close the computer, pick up the phone, call the agent, and ask how much it is. It just added unnecessary steps. I mean, that's what's gonna happen.
but if they just put it on their, because
Or
I
well,
notice an up and coming brokerage in Pittsburgh. What they've
Is
been
it us?
sure. No, I don't know. I mean, you guys may be doing this. You may be on their website. They're all when you click on their website, it's already showing the
I know what you're
BAC.
talking about. Yes. I
So
don't know.
isn't that telling realtors and consumers, like maybe they can't put BAC, maybe freaking just write the words out, and so we don't have these abbreviations, so you're not going to have it on the model list.
right.
Is this the only thing that may really change?
I mean, it's just adding more steps.
And just eliminating from the MLS? Because I always as being a title company, I don't have access to MLS. I have no idea what the heck agents are getting paid. The only way I know is you turn in a commission statement. Okay. And no offense, but a buyer's commission statement, all I'm really getting from that is your broker fee. I don't, the listing contract is what the seller worked out with the seller, with the listing agent with the seller, and I go off of that. I may point it out to the agents. You would be surprised how many conflicting sales agreements I get from the two, because now,
You mean commission statements?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. Well, no, it's not all. It's not always split equally either. There's no. It might be. I think there was a brokerage I work with. Brokerage policy would be 50-50, but that's not really a law,
Well,
let's
it's
say,
always a
right?
fun. We do the title or two. Always a fun title when the seller sends you and their commission's higher than the buyers, and they didn't know that. And then And you're sitting there in the middle going, well, this is what's on the statement. This is what I was provided. You
But
guys got
see,
to work
isn't
this out. And
but
it's just more red tape, and the consumers don't benefit. Again, it's
the consumers don't benefit from there because then we'll get agents going, well,
Right.
no, it was 6% off of the net,
Right.
not off with concessions.
right.
I know that's not written anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So you're really going and dictating, you know,
You could add that as a stip in the listing contract, actually, I think, right?
oh, you could do,
As of today, you could.
you could do all these
Right.
things, but once again, us as the title
Oh, yeah,
companies,
yeah. Right.
we don't have this stuff. We're not
Right.
subject to getting this information. And I'll be like, guys, you need to work this out
Do
amongst
people like
yourselves.
flip out when you're dealing with this? Like this, sometimes it gets very contentious.
Oh yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh yes. Yes. A lot of times agents will then find out at that point in time
Oh,
that the commission was 7% and they've only offered 3%.
that's okay though. That's totally legal as far as I know.
It's totally legal, but it doesn't stop the brain damage that we get.
We need a better group, a better group in Washington for the title guys. We always get
Ye-
screwed.
yeah, you know what I mean? So like so I think the MLS, maybe that isn't the best place for maybe all the communications to happen. So maybe this might work out great for us having title companies. You know, maybe it should be one single form that comes over that both agents actually fill out instead of two separate ones. You know, some agents get us a commission statement right before the closing. Some will say they sent it ahead of the closing, and then sometimes maybe it takes, because one agent sends it over later, you don't realize there's a conflict to later, later on. So I know for us as title companies, it can be a little tricky. I've had agents say, we charge a brokerage fee. I know I didn't put it on there.
It's got to be on there.
Gotta be on.
Because I can eat the brokerage fee myself, actually. You know what I mean? I could cover it for my client. I mean, because there are.
Well, there's some brokerages that the broker fee does go to the broker, or some partial of it goes to the broker, some of it goes to the agents.
You can't charge it in VA. Sometimes you can't. A lot of times do it in relocation files. There are instances where if it's not on there, if it's to be charged, it should be on this.
Yeah,
because you're the one that's dispersing all this stuff.
We are the one dispersing it. We are dispersing it, and I don't know if you've ever run into this. Have you ever had a seller
Threaten to blow it up because it changed,
or just refuse to pay commission?
Yeah, we had it. We had it on a.
I don't know. A lot of people understand that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And can you stop a real estate closing because a seller refuses to pay commission?
We had one. Seller literally refused to sign. Buyer ended up suing him for specific performance and ended up getting litigated.
No. I'm saying the seller.
Like if the seller
No. Do you have the right to stop a closing because a seller refuses to pay commission? I'm going to say no.
I don't think so. That's a good question.
I'm going to say no.
That comes back to the listing contract.
It does go to listing contract.
But
who's the listing contract with?
But if buyer seller both show up and sign, you can't just not record it.
No.
Go through with it, you mean?
No, not record it. I'm saying the seller says, I refuse to pay commission.
Right. But I'm saying like
change the HUD one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pay it.
I'm not paying it.
And the agents say, hey, I'm not getting paid. I think you're right. You have to go through with it.
You do have to go through with it. I know. No, you do have to go through with it. Yeah. You have to go through with it because who was a title company to stop a closing?
No, right.
Because of this.
Exactly.
we don't. And
I haven't had that one yet. Now I'm give me bad juju.
I had one on commercial where
I've had this, and what happens afterwards is we have to go forward, and then the listing agent then will go and go after the seller.
Yes. And so
I've had this. So what's going to stop possibly a seller from saying, I don't want to pay one agent?
Right.
mean, I hope that this nonsense does. This is
I
why.
think that needs to be spelled out though in the listing agreement.
Yes, I mean, buyer's agent would have no recourse because they don't have to sign an agreement.
So
for
what? Everybody breaks contracts all the time. That's not for us, the title company, to put on my
Oh, right.
shoulders.
This would be like
I'm saying
XYZ
afterwards.
Realty and Mr. Seller
Yeah.
would then enter into
I'd have to have
a little bit of a
something
dispute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, guys, I don't think our industry is broken whatsoever. I can't wait to get this behind us. And I hope it's not being used as a selling tool. I hope it's quit being used as a political campaign, because this is injuring people, and injuring agents, I think, is going to start injuring consumers.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be,
especially first time home buyers.
I think agents it's going to lead, to an even higher increase of agents getting out of the business. And I know like us pros may clap to that, but that's actually not where I'm at with all that.
No.
Because that's when a business closed, that's a dream that just died.
And Michael,
You know what I mean?
listen, if you're confident in what you do, are you afraid of?
I am not at all. I'm not at all
afraid. I'm not afraid of my competitors.
Oh, no,
I'm not. I don't. I think there's enough to go around. I'm not.
Yeah.
There's plenty to go around, and I don't. There's no ruthless way of like we need to like put people out of business.
Right. I think it's bad. Yeah, when if a brokerage closes, that's my heart really like kind of breaks when things like that tend to happen. I mean, it's not something that I want to see. Whether even if I'm not a part of it and all of that, I don't want to see that.
Well, guys, keep putting up the good fight. Keep getting that information out there. Let's sell some houses this year. Let's buy some houses this year. Let's make this a good 2024.
Yeah, for sure. There's the largest buyers pool in the history of the United States is now.
Yes.
But I don't think people realize the millennials are a larger group than baby boomers were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone knows how baby boomers like kind of changed everything because of that.
Yes.
It's actually larger than that.
And everybody out there, just know there are good people in this industry. There are very good people in this industry. There are people that are very charitable in this industry. There are people that do many things that they're not compensated for outside. They don't just work for compensation. We do make friends. And I hope, and I know it sounds corny, but I hope we're changing lives sometimes too.
Absolutely.
In a more positive
way.
are. Yes, and I believe that too. I really do.
And if that's not one of the core values for an like every agent should have some kind of core values to their business. If that's not one of them, then we got that maybe we want to rethink that.
Yeah, let the consumer make a decision for themselves. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you guys. Well, nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.